Hi everyone, I'm Angie and welcome to Make It Monday. So this month we're going to create some beaded container garden stakes that you can use in your outdoor planters as well as your indoor house plants. So let's get started. We're going to start with the items that we need. First thing you're going to need is a round nose plier like this. This will help you bend the wire, and the rounded nose helps make nice loops. And you're also going to need a wire cutter for cutting your wire. This is what our garden stakes are going to look like when we're finished. So the other thing you need is some wire. So you're going to need anywhere from a 16 gauge to a 20 gauge wire depending on where you're going to use your garden stakes. Wire, the higher the number, the thinner the wire. So 16 gauge is going to be heavier than the 20 gauge. So I would recommend, if you're going to do this for an outdoor planter that sits on your porch or whatever, I would use a 16 gauge wire. If you're going to use them for indoor house plants, a 20 gauge wire will work just fine. And then we're also going to need some beads. What I like to use is glass beads. I think they catch the sunlight well, and so they just look really pretty. Plastic beads would work. However, if you're going to use them outside, I would think that the sun would bleach the plastic out, and therefore after a while they won't look very well. So I would stick to glass beads. And I have just an assortment of different colors of glass beads. And then also, I'm going to use what I call some spacer beads. These are just tiny little beads that I use to space in between my bigger beads. And you don't have to use spacer beads. It's really up to the look that you're going for. This particular one I did not use any spacer beads in. These next two I did use spacer beads. And spacer beads come in all different kinds of colors. So it's really up to you how you want your garden stake to look. All right, so the first thing I want to show you is how to create the different types of tops that I used on these garden stakes. There is just a coil top, an open coil top, and then kind of a hook top. So I'm just going to grab some wire here, and I'm going to show you how to do this swirl top first. And I've chosen some bright blue wire so that hopefully this will show up really well on camera. So the first thing you want to do is take the very end of your wire and grab that in your pliers. And then you're going to just turn your pliers and let that wrap around about a half a turn. So you'll end up with what looks like a hook. Then you're going to grab that end again, and you're going to bring that so the wire meets the long wire, so you end up with a loop. Once you have the loop, you're going to grab that loop right between your pliers, and you're going to start to turn. And basically what you're doing is encouraging the wire to wrap around that loop. So I just hold the free end in my hand, and I do about a half turn each time before I change the position of my pliers. And you're going to continue that until you get about 2 turns around that top. So once you've gotten that, then we need to make a right angle turn in our wire. So how I do that is I'm going to kind of straighten that out a little bit. I'm going to take that loop and face it straight down away from me. I'm going to grab the wire fairly close to the loop, but probably about a 1/4 inch away. And then I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to bend it straight up. So it's going to look like this. Then you're going to take that coil and you're going to continue it until your coil is kind of centered over that right angle. So it looks like that. And mine's a little elongated. To me, there's no right or wrong way to that. So that is the first type of top. The second type of top is going to be this open coil top. And that starts out very similar to the wrapped coil. So again, you're going to grab the very end of your wire and you're going to twist it a half a turn until you get that hook. Then instead of grabbing it like we did the last time where you would bring that all the way in, you're going to leave that hook kind of open. You're going to grab that between your pliers, and you're going to continue to wrap, but you're not going to wrap tight. You're going to wrap as an open coil. So you're just going to kind of encourage your wire. So I always just hold the loose end in my hand just to kind of steady things. And again, I'm only going about a quarter to a half a turn each time. And you're going to just continue to do this until you get your coil as big as you want. So I'll probably do one more turn here. And then again, we need to make that right angle turn. So I'm going to face that coil away from me. I'm going to grab about a quarter of an inch close to the coil, and I'm going to bend that wire straight up. So then we've got our right angle turn in there. Now we're going to just take our coil and we're going to move it towards that. And now we've got our coil top. Okay, so the last top I'm going to show you how to do is this hook top. And on this, I've put a bead on there. So I'm going to grab my piece of wire, and I've got a bead here. And I like to put my bead on to start with. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bend my wire, and this is thin enough wire that I can bend it with my hands. If your wire is a little heavier, you might need to bend it with your pliers. Okay, so I've got my bead on there, and I just hooked that wire around the bead. Now, I'm not so much going to use this. And hang on, I need to grab one more thing that I forgot to have here. I need that rounded pen. Okay, so now we're going to just take, and I'm going to just kind of bend this with my hands to get that hook in there. And if you have trouble, if it gets too elongated, take a round object. So this is just a pen, but it's got a nice round cylinder on it. And I'm just going to use that to help me encourage a nice rounded shape. Okay, I'm going to just curve that. I'm trying to do this so my hands are not so much in the way for you guys. All right, sometimes you just need to start over again. So I'm going to take and just bring that back up. And my bead keeps slipping here, so I'm going to bend this around the bead. There we go. So now I've got my wire completely bent around the bead, and I think that will help. Okay, so now we're going to bend that with my fingers. And I'm going to kind of just push that under. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I've got it kind of like that. Now I want to put my second loop in there. So that's this loop here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this pen for that. So I'm going to go down here so that I'm a little bit below. And I'm going to take that wire. So I've got the hook facing away from me. I'm going to take that wire, I'm going to bend it over. And you just need any round object for this. I just happen to have this pen and it worked really well. So there I've got my second loop in there. And this loop is going to keep your beads from sliding up into this. So what I do is I just push it down on the surface so that that loop is flat. And then once you have that, you can adjust this a little bit to the way that you want it. So there is your hook top. Okay. Okay, welcome back everybody. Had some technical issues there again. All right, so what we're going to do is make a bead stake from start to finish. So I've chosen some copper wire here, I've chosen my beads, and I've chosen some spacer beads, which these are just clear beads. When laying your beads out, you can do any kind of pattern that you want. For this particular one, I'm kind of doing a rainbow order pattern. I like different colored beads. Also, when you're choosing your beads, think about choosing different shapes and sizes. So we've got different shapes, some long ones, some round ones, some more flat ones. So think about that when you're choosing your beads. So we're going to start threading these on here. So I've got my coil top already in place. I'm going to start with my bigger bead, and I'm trying to keep the top end of this in the camera so you can see it there. And I'll put a bigger bead and then a spacer bead. And then next I'll choose, just go along with my pattern that I had kind of laid out. And I'm going to put a spacer bead in between each of my larger beads. It's just a nice way to space everything out. Choose another spacer bead. And you're just going to continue on this way until you get all of your beads onto your wire. So I'm just threading them on from the bottom end. The other thing I suggest is that before you start, take a little piece of the wire that you're going to use and make sure that it's going to fit through all of your beads. Some beads, the holes are bigger than others, and then depending on which size wire you choose, some beads might work better for a 20 gauge wire, and some beads might work better for a 16 gauge wire. All right, I have just a few more beads left to put on here. So just keep threading until you get everything on your wire. Just a couple more left. I'm going to finish with this real dark purple one and then one spacer bead just to hold the end in place. Okay, now that you've got all your beads on there, you can see my wire is kind of curved. It seems like once you get the beads on, it's easier to kind of straighten that wire out. So I just kind of bend it with my hands to just kind of straighten that out. Now what we're going to do is on the end of all of these, I have created a loop at the bottom, and that's just going to hold all the beads in place. So to do that, again, I'm going to take that round pen. I'm going to place it right up against kind of my last bead there, and I'm going to take and just twist my wire around to form that loop. And that loop is going to hold all of your beads in place. And don't be afraid to kind of bend this around and make it work the way you want it to. So there I've got my bead. So there is your bead stake. Now, depending on what gauge wire you used, the 20 gauge, it seems like we needed to add some strength to the base where we push it into the plant. So all I did for that is I folded the wire in half and twisted it around, and that just adds some stability to the base of that. The 16 gauge wire is probably going to be fine just as it is. If you find that it is not as stable as you would like it, I'm going to bring in one that I already did. For the 16 gauge wire, I thought it was kind of hard to bend the wire up and twist it. So for this one, I took a second piece of wire and just cut it about the length I need and just twisted it around the base of this. And that was just to hold that stable. So that is our garden bead stakes for this month. I hope you enjoyed this project. Here, I'll bring this in so you can see what I did with this one. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you again next month for Make It Monday. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.